Chapter 161, Antique Books. A gentle smile never left Ning Fengji's face as he met everyone's eyes. When the disciple who had made the mistake stood there sheepish and silent, Ning Fengji simply waved him off with a light gesture. The disciple immediately understood and went to Ye Shi, Shui Ke, Du Guyan, and the others one by one, bowing and apologizing with a sincere voice. Ye Shi and Shi Qinghe paid the apology no mind. An apology was only a formality. What mattered was the compensation from the 7 treasure glazed tile school. Ye Shi tapped the armrest of her chair and fixed her azure eyes on Ning Fengji in the main seat. She did not speak, but her meaning was unmistakable. An apology alone would not satisfy her. "I have already prepared compensation for everyone," Ning Fengji said, returning her stare. "It will be delivered by our 7 treasure glazed tile school's disciples shortly." Uncle's sword. Ning Fengji called to Chen Xin, who was standing behind him. Chen Xin stepped forward and walked directly toward Ye Shi. Ling Yuan, standing just behind Ye Shi, watched him approach with a guarded expression. Chen Xin took from his person an old, yellowed book. 2 large characters, 7 kill, were written on the cover. He set the book in front of Ye Shi and smiled without speaking, waiting for her to look at it first. Puzzled, Ye Shi opened the book and began to flip through it. As she read, Chen Xin spoke calmly. "This belonged to my father. When he was 108, he broke through to level 97 peak Douluo, but that same year, he met the last opponent of his life and narrowly lost. Before he died, he told me about this book and about the differences that appear after level 95 titled Douluo. Your talent is something I have never seen. I have no descendants and no one to pass my legacy to. I do not want this book to be lost. At Master Fengji's suggestion, I want to give it to you. Perhaps it will help you." Chen Xin's voice was quiet, as if recounting a simple fact, but Ye Shi felt her heart drop. She glanced at Ning Fengji in the main seat. He smiled and gave her a slight nod. Ye Shi kept her composure on the surface, but inside she was not happy. The book was invaluable, exactly the sort of thing that could improve her swordsmanship, but the way it was offered made a difference. If it were given as compensation, she could accept it cleanly. Given as a personal gift, however, she would owe Chen Xin a great debt of gratitude, one of the hardest things to repay. Worse, she had already read half the book and, thanks to her photographic memory, had essentially memorized what she'd seen. Returning it now would be pointless. Ning Fengji's smile widened as he watched the change flicker across her face. Young and inexperienced, he thought, she had already fallen for his Tao. "If you can't accept thanks now, you'll owe it later," he mused silently. Ye Shi's talent would only increase with time, and the debt of gratitude would become more valuable. As the pavilion master of Frost Snow Pavilion, backed by the Heaven Do royal family, Ye Shi's future influence made the leverage even more useful. Whether she accepted the book now or was maneuvered into it later mattered little. Either way, it would serve his designs. Shui Qinghe, sipping tea across the table, could not help a quiet sigh. From the way things had gone, Ye Shi had clearly been drawn into Ning Fengji's plan. It would be hard for her to extort him now. As Ning Fengji's disciple in name, Shui Qinghe also felt it inappropriate to press the matter further. Du Guyan and Shui Ke were out of the question. "If there is anything you don't understand, ask me," Chen Xin said gently, keeping his eyes on Ye Shi. "If I can answer, I will." "Thank you, Senior Chen Xin," Ye Shi replied with a polite smile. "If I have any questions, I will come to you." No sign of her inner calculation showed on her face. Chen Xin nodded and returned to Ning Fengji's side. Soon the 7 treasure glazed tile school's disciples entered the banquet hall, carrying exquisitely crafted gift boxes. They placed one before each of the guests: Ye Shi, Shui Qinghe, Shui Ke, Du Guyan, Ye Lingling, even Ling Yuan. "This is the compensation for everyone," Ning Fengji announced, his voice gentle as he surveyed the assembled faces. "You may open them and take a look. The compensation prepared by Master will certainly not be ordinary." Shui Qinghe smiled, set down his teacup, and waved away the need to inspect. He handed his share to Shui Ke, who accepted it with a sweet smile and a grateful nod to Ning Fengji. Du Guyan's anger dissipated at once. Ye Shi looked from the ornate gift box at her place to the ancient book in her hands. After a moment's thoughtfulness, she set the book atop the box and smiled up at Ning Fengji. She would accept the book for now. Better to take the offering than to wage a losing battle when she suspected Ning Fengji still had other tricks up his sleeve, and that refusing outright would only make things harder for her later. Chapter 162. Miss, you don't seem very happy. Ning Fengji felt considerably lighter after seeing Ye Shi accept the books. He rose from his seat and, without a word, gestured toward everyone, his meaning perfectly clear. Teacher, it's getting late. I'll take Xueke back to the royal palace now. Shi Qinghe stood, bowed slightly to Ning Fengji, and led Xueke out of the banquet hall. Schoolmaster Ning, we'll head back to Frost Snow Pavilion first. Ye Shi also rose and waved to Dugu Yan, Ye Lingling, and the others. As everyone left the hall, Ning Fengji walked alongside Ye Shi and Shui Qinghe, only stopping once he had accompanied them to the entrance of the seven-treasure glazed tile school. He watched silently as their carriages rolled out toward Heaven Do City. When the carriages were out of sight, Ning Rongrong approached him with a puzzled look. Father, why did you let Grandfather Sword give his books to Ye Shi? There was a note of displeasure in her voice. Because of a favor, Ning Fengji said calmly. Rongrong, you must understand, the hardest thing to repay in this world is a debt of gratitude. On the surface, it may look like our seven-treasure glazed tile school lost out, but once a debt of gratitude is incurred, it's not easily repaid. He rested a hand on her shoulder and spoke with unruffled composure. Chen Xin, standing behind him, had been silent the whole time. Only after the carriages had disappeared did Ning Fengji lead Ning Rongrong, Chen Xin, and the rest back into the school. Meanwhile, in the carriage, Ye Shi leaned against the wall and flipped through the book in her hands, but her expression was oddly distant. Young miss, you seem a little unhappy, Tian Yao observed quietly. By all accounts, you got the apology from the seven-treasure glazed tile school and the books from Chen Xin. Shouldn't you be the one who benefited the most? Ye Shi shook her head. Before she could answer, Ling Yuan, sitting toward the front of the carriage, spoke in a calm voice. On the surface, young miss gained the most, but in truth, she only suffered a loss. She gained books, yes, but she also incurred a future favor. Tian Yao nodded, beginning to understand. Then why didn't young miss refuse them at the time? It wouldn't have made much difference. Even if I'd refused, Ning Fengji likely had a backup plan to force me to acknowledge the favor. A plan I couldn't refuse, Ye Shi said, closing the book and resting her head on her hand. Her silver hair fell naturally across her shoulder. Tian Yao, Dugu Yan, and Ye Lingling exchanged glances and fell quiet. Ye Shi waved a hand as if to dismiss their concern. It's only a debt of gratitude, difficult to repay, yes, but not impossible. Her tone was casual, but the faint furrow between her brows betrayed her unease. Ning Fengji's quiet maneuver had put her on alert. Never let your guard down. The others opened the apology gifts from the seven-treasure glazed tile school, and their eyes lit up. They really are as wealthy as their reputation, Dugu Yan said, impressed. Everything in here is precious. Tian Yao and Ye Lingling compared their items and found them identical. Each finely crafted box held a warm jade pendant, clearly valuable. Ye Shi glanced at her own box, but had no intention of opening it. She could guess it held the same. The carriage stopped outside Frost Snow Pavilion. To Ye Shi's surprise, Shui Qinghe's carriage had stopped too. Xueke climbed out and hurried toward her, eyes bright and excited. Xiaoxi, Xueke doesn't want to go back to the royal palace. May I leave him at Frost Snow Pavilion for the night? Shui Qinghe asked softly. Before Ye Shi could reply, Xueke seized her arm and blinked at her eagerly. Ye Shi smiled faintly. Shui Qinghe, you should go back to the royal palace. Xueke will be fine here with me. Xueke, don't cause Xiaoxi any trouble, Shui Qinghe cautioned sincerely, then inclined his head toward Ye Shi. His carriage began to pull away toward Tiando Royal Palace and soon vanished down the road. Ye Shi led Xueke, Tian Yao, Dugu Yan, Ye Lingling, and the others into Frost Snow Pavilion. Walking along the small path toward the rear hall, she glanced at Xueke. Would you like the same room you stayed in last time? Xueke nodded eagerly. Of course. Xiaoxi, do you have any clothes here that would fit me? I want to take a bath. Ye Shi considered his small frame, then shook her head gently. Not right now, but I'll have a maid get you a set. Then thank you, Xiaoxi. Xueke's face brightened. Ye Shi smiled faintly at him. You all should get some rest as well. Tian Yao, Dugu Yan, and Ye Lingling agreed and went their separate ways. Ye Shi led Shui Ke deeper into the back hall, their conversation breaking into occasional, bell-like laughter as they walked. They arrived at the room Shui Ke had used before. Ye Shi waved to him and then went off in her own direction. Chapter 163. It's not mine after all. As soon as Ye Shi stepped into her room, her maid Zhongmeng's voice echoed from inside. "Young miss, you're back." Zhongmeng bowed slightly and moved forward. Ye Shi's eyes swept the room. Everything for a bath had been prepared, as always. She slipped out of her clothes and eased into the warm water, closing her eyes to relax. Zhongmeng tidied the discarded garments and stood respectfully at the side, waiting for instructions. Time passed quietly. After her bath and change of clothes, Ye Shi sat on the bed and began reading the ancient book. When Zhongmeng had finished straightening the room, she slipped out. The large chamber fell silent, except for the soft rustle of pages turning. After an unknown stretch of time, Ye Shi finished the book, closed it slowly, and looked out the window. Dawn was just beginning to pale the eastern sky. "This book has helped me more than I expected," she murmured to herself, a thoughtful expression in her eyes. The book that Chen Xin had given her contained a very complete version of the 7-kill sword techniques. Complete, that is, except for the final move. Ye Shi understood why. Even masters withheld certain things when teaching, and it was natural that Chen Xin might not have shared everything. Even without the last move, however, the book had taught her a great deal. If she could fully comprehend and make those techniques her own, her swordsmanship would rise at least one level. She stretched, stood, and left the room. At Ling Yuan's door she knocked. The door opened, and Ling Yuan bowed. "Young miss." "Ling Yuan, take this book to the 7-treasure glazed tile school and return it to Chen Xin," Ye Shi said, placing it in her maid's hands. With her photographic memory, she could reproduce the text perfectly. She wanted the original given back to its owner. After all, it had belonged to Chen Xin's father and might mean something important to her. "Yes, young miss," Ling Yuan replied and took the book. Ye Shi watched Ling Yuan's back until she left, then turned toward the training ground where Tian Yao, Dugu Yan, and the others usually practiced. It was early. The others weren't there yet. In the open space, she drew the slaughter sword and closed her eyes, reviewing in her mind the portions of the 7-kill sword she could use. Opening her eyes, she began to move. The blade flashed and the slaughter sword danced. A faint killing intent gathered around her. Her techniques were stripped of flourish. Simple, deadly, precise. Ghost Leopard appeared a short distance away and watched quietly. "Second Miss's sword feels a little like the High Priest's, but I can see traces of the 7-kill sword too," he murmured to himself. But he did not interrupt her. When Ye Shi stopped, she thrust the sword casually into the ground and stared into thought. Ghost Leopard approached and spoke softly. "Young miss, your sword work is excellent, but I think I found a small problem." Ye Shi looked up. "What problem?" she asked. Ghost Leopard hesitated, choosing his words. "Your sword is very similar to the High Priest's, and there's a shadow of the 7-kill sword in it. If you intend to delve into sword techniques, why not focus on the High Priest's teachings instead of blending in the 7-kill sword?" Ye Shi pulled the slaughter sword free and continued practicing as she answered. "My grandfather's techniques are excellent, but they're not truly my own. The best isn't always the most suitable." She moved through a sequence and then adjusted it, discarding unnecessary motions and adding new, honed ones. Ghost Leopard fell back a little to observe. It seemed her practice had already advanced. Her forms had been refined, sharper, and more personal. He sighed inwardly at her talent, then rose and started toward the pavilion. A few steps later, he stopped and glanced toward the Tiando royal palace. Not only is young Miss terrifyingly talented, he thought, the young lord's talent is too, only he hides it while she displays hers. He sat in the pavilion and watched Ye Shi continue to refine her style. By 9 in the morning, Tian Yao, Dugu Yan, and Ye Lingling arrived at the training ground. They paused when they saw Ye Shi still practicing and chose not to disturb her. Instead, they went to the pavilion where Ghost Leopard sat. They bowed to him and, at his nod, took seats, their gazes fixed on Ye Shi. "How long has young Miss been training?" Tian Yao asked. "Over 3 hours, nearly 4, Ghost Leopard answered with a hint of feeling in his voice. The three exchanged looks. A single thought touched each of them at the same time. They had arrived late today. Chapter 164, Passing By. After 2 or 3 hours, Yeshi's movements gradually slowed. The slaughter sword vanished from her hand and she stepped into the pavilion, took a seat, and greeted everyone before falling into silent thought. Ghost Leopard stood quietly behind her. Tian Yao, Du Guyan, Ye Lingling, and the others saw her deep in contemplation and didn't interrupt. They slipped out of the pavilion and resumed their daily training. Not long after, Ling Yuan appeared nearby. She scanned the area, then walked over to the pavilion. Upon arriving, she bowed to Yeshi and said, "Young miss, I returned that book to Chen Xin." Yeshi slowly lifted her head, meeting Ling Yuan's eyes, then glanced at the three who were training. A thoughtful expression crossed her face. "Ling Yuan, go tell Aunt Ye that all matters, big and small, at the Frost Snow Pavilion will be temporarily handled by her. I'll be cultivating diligently in the rear hall for a while." "Yes, young miss." Ling Yuan bowed and left for the front hall. Yeshi rose and walked forward. Ghost Leopard prepared to follow, then heard her speak in a clear, pleasant voice from ahead. "Ghost Leopard, after their training today, tell them that starting tomorrow I'll be their sparring partner." Ghost Leopard acknowledged the order and turned his attention to the three trainees, waiting quietly until they finished. Time flew. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. Yishi's life became extremely disciplined. Every morning she sparred with Tian Yao, Du Guyan, and Ye Lingling. Every afternoon she practiced sword techniques alone. Every evening she meditated and cultivated, so she'd wake refreshed for the next day. Because of Yeshi's relentless rhythm, Tian Yao, Du Guyan, Ye Lingling, and the others advanced much faster than usual. Their spirit power ranks rose quickly, and their combat skills and experience also improved by leaps, partly from synchronized meditation and cultivation, and partly from being beaten repeatedly during training. Injuries weren't a problem. Ye Lingling held the 9-heart begonia spirit plant. A warm, healing light drifted from its leaves, mending wounds instantly. If her healing couldn't handle something, they could always go to Ye Qingxue in the front hall, a spirit master at the spirit saint rank. One afternoon, in the rear hall's open training space, Ye Shi watched Tian Yao and Du Guyan lie on the ground. She withdrew her hand reluctantly and walked back toward the pavilion. Her own spirit power had long ago reached the rank 50 bottleneck, but she hadn't rushed to attach a spirit ring. She planned to wait until Tian Yao also reached rank 50 so they could attach rings together, and then head to Slaughter City for experience. The 9-heart begonia glowed in Ye Lingling's palm, bathing Tian Yao and Du Guyan in soft healing light. Du Guyan breathed out and glanced at Tian Yao. "Tian Yao, when will your spirit power hit rank 50? This high-intensity training, it's hard to bear." Du Guyan's face was serious. She admitted their strength had shot up under Yeshi's program, but the pain and lack of rest were brutal. The evenings only gave enough recovery to face the next day. There was no real relaxation. She had even once asked Yeshi why she'd upped the intensity so much. Yeshi's answer had been simple. She wanted to take Tian Yao to Slaughter City, a dangerous place, and every bit of strength would make them safer. In short, the training focused on improving Tian Yao. Du Guyan was secondary. Ye Lingling, as a support-type spirit master, trained less intensely than the others. Soon, Tian Yao's reply was calm and confident. "My spirit power is at rank 49 now. I'm almost at the bottleneck. I'll reach rank 50 soon." Tian Yao was an attack-type spirit master who followed the path of physical cultivation. She was used to taking hits. That made the regimen more acceptable to her than it was to Du Guyan, who was a control-type spirit master and felt the pain more acutely. Yeshi had learned to endure in her own way when she attached her first ring, training with offerings from the Hall of Offerings, which were strong but controlled so they didn't cause lasting injury. Under Ye Lingling's care, both Tian Yao and Du Guyan's injuries healed quickly. They rose and walked back toward the pavilion. Inside the pavilion, Yeshi sat at the table, sipping a cool drink. Shui Ke had a hand on her shoulder and murmured something into her ear. When Tian Yao, Du Guyan, and Ye Lingling entered, Yeshi looked them over and nodded with satisfied approval. After 2 years of hard training, she could confidently say that Du Guyan, even when facing an attack-type spirit master of the same rank head-on, would no longer be at a clear disadvantage. And Ye Lingling's support capabilities were, without question, among the very best. "Sit down, eat something, and rest for a bit," Ye Shi said, a faint smile in her voice. "You still have the usual training this afternoon." She let her gaze sweep over Tian Yao, Du Guyan, and Ye Lingling, pleased with how far they'd come. Chapter 165, Colorful Poison. At Ye Shi's words, Tian Yao, Du Guyan, and Ye Lingling exchanged looks and then nodded in unison. "You all rest first," Ye Shi said. "I'll take Shui Ke for a walk in Frost Snow Pavilion." She patted Shui Ke's arm, rose from her seat, and stepped out of the pavilion. They walked along the bluestone path, and Ye Shi glanced at Shui Ke before asking softly, "Shui Ke, you mentioned the Emperor's been unwell lately. What's happened?" Her voice was calm, her sapphire blue eyes unreadable. Shui Ke's expression was quiet. "Father's health has declined somewhat. He's handed many state matters over to my elder brother." She held Ye Shi's arm. "I suppose that's normal. He's getting older." Ye Shi smiled without much expression. She already suspected the truth. The Breaking Clan specialized in alchemy and poisons, and their most infamous creation was the seven-colored glazed poison, a unique and deadly toxin known only to the Breaking Clan. Across the entire continent, only two people could prepare it, the clan chief, Yang Wudi, and the second clan chief, Yang Wushuang. Yang Wudi, who also served as hall master of Frost Snow Pavilion, tended the medicinal gardens in Sunset Forest, and refined medicines that brought considerable income to the pavilion. Yang Wushuang had long been staying close to Crown Prince Shui Qinghe. It was no surprise, then, that Emperor Shui Ye's poor health had the odor of subtle poisoning. Shui Ke thought for a moment and then nodded. "That would explain it. My father is old. His health declining makes sense." She glanced at Ye Shi. "Do you have time today? You haven't strolled through Heaven Do City with me in ages. You're always training or sparring with Tian Yao and the others. You should rest sometimes." Ye Shi's lips lifted. "All right, I'll come along." Shui Ke brightened. "I'll leave in a while to train outside the city for a time, though." "At the Slaughter City?" Shui Ke asked, curiosity pricking her voice. Ye Shi kept walking forward, "Probably for half a year to a year. If all goes well, I'll be back before the Elite Spirit Master Tournament." "And danger?" Shui Ke's face turned a shade more serious. "Are you worried?" Ye Shi gave a light laugh, confident and almost casual. "Danger? With my current strength, I don't know what an equal opponent looks like among our generation." Her tone was arrogant in a way that made Shui Ke smile fondly. If one can't be proud in youth, when can one be? They reached the main hall of the front palace. Ye Qingshe sat at a desk alone, handling state papers. "Aunt Ye, you're working hard," Ye Shi said as she guided Shui Ke forward. Ye Qingshe looked up and smiled gently. "It's nothing. Handling these affairs is a small thing." She had moved her residence to Frost Snow Pavilion after Ye Shi handed matters over to her, and she'd been managing the Nine-Heart Begonia family's business from there as well. "Do you plan to take over Frost Snow Pavilion's day-to-day when you come out of the inner palace?" Ye Shi asked. "Do you need me to organize anything before I leave?" Ye Qingshe shook her head. "It will be a bit troublesome for you, but I can manage. You don't need to worry." Relieved, Ye Shi nodded and led Shui Ke away toward the busiest part of Heaven Do City. Ye Qingshe watched them go, then sat back down and resumed work. Meanwhile, in Tiando Royal Palace, inside the Crown Prince's chambers, Shui Qinghe sat by the window with a cup of clear tea, a faint smile on his lips. Shilong and Sishui stood behind him, one to each side, silent as shadows. "Young lord, our supply of seven-colored glazed poison is running low," Yang Wushuang reported respectfully. "We should prepare more." Shui Qinghe waved the concern away and sipped his tea. "I'll have it arranged." Yang Wushuang bowed and left the inner hall. After he stepped out, Shui Qinghe set the teacup on the desk and asked casually, "Shilong, did Shui Ke go to Frost Snow Pavilion this morning?" "She did, young lord," Shilong replied without hesitation. "She went early to see Second Miss." Shui Qinghe's expression tightened with intent. "Prepare. We'll go to Frost Snow Pavilion tonight." He rose and added, "First, I'll visit the Emperor in the study." He left the room without pausing. Shilong and Shishui glanced at each other, took a few measured steps back, and melted into the palace's shadows as if they had never been there. Shui Qinghei's footsteps were deliberate as he made his way toward the study to see Emperor Shuiye. Chapter 166, Keep in Touch. In the study, Emperor Shuiye sat behind his desk, quietly leafing through the books before him. At the door, a guard announced, "Your Majesty, Crown Prince Shui Qinghei requests an audience." The emperor slowly looked up toward the entrance. "Let Shui Qinghei in." The door opened, and Shui Qinghei stepped into the room. He bowed low. "Your Majesty, your son greets you." "Is there anything in the state affairs you can't handle?" the emperor asked. Emperor Shuiye smiled and gestured to the seat on his left. "Sit." He pointed to a stack of documents. "Your son has handled today's matters. They'll be brought to you shortly for review." Shui Qinghei settled into the offered seat and answered calmly. "They are all in hand. I'll have someone deliver them." The emperor nodded, pleased. Over the past 2 years, he had entrusted more state matters to his son. The burden on his shoulders had eased, and he had found his energy flagging compared to before. "There's no need for review," he said. "They are minor. Let him act as he sees fit." He waved his hand as if dismissing that topic, then changed the subject. "Qinghei, how have you been with Xiaoxi lately? Has Princess Shuike dragged her off to Frost Snow Pavilion again?" Shu Qinghei's expression remained composed. "Xiaoxi has been focused on cultivation in the back hall of Frost Snow Pavilion for the last 2 years. I have avoided disturbing her, so I haven't been there often. Our relationship is the same, no great progress. But Princess Shuike goes by often to see her. The two are close." Shui Qinghei answered plainly, understanding his father's meaning. He wanted them to build a closer relationship. The emperor spoke earnestly. "You should learn from Princess Shuike. When you have free time, visit Frost Snow Pavilion more often and spend time with her." "I understand, Imperial Father," Shui Qinghei replied without hesitation. He knew the emperor's intent, simply to foster relations with Ye Shi. "Good," the emperor said, nodding. He looked back down at his book. Shui Qinghei hesitated for a moment, then added, "Tomorrow is Xiaoxi's birthday. Should the imperial family do?" The emperor barely glanced up from his pages. "Since it is her birthday, the imperial family should naturally show their respect. Decide it as you see fit." "Very well," Shui Qinghei said. "I will take my leave." He rose, bowed, and left the study. Instead of returning to his own palace, he walked straight out of the imperial palace toward Frost Snow Pavilion. On the busy street, the noise and clamor only put a faint curve on his lips as he walked, until his steps stalled when he spotted 2 familiar figures ahead. Princess Shuike and Ye Shi stood by a pastry stall, sampling treats. "This pastry is really good," Shuike said, face serious as she tasted. "Let's buy some more. I'll take them back to my older brother." Ye Shi smiled and said nothing. Her eyes, though, flicked behind her where she had already noticed Shui Qinghei approaching. "How rare. Our princess can still remember me, her older brother," Shui Qinghei called in a leisurely voice from behind. Princess Shuike blinked, then smiled when she turned to see him. "Brother, shouldn't you be dealing with state affairs in the palace? Why are you here?" "They're handled," he replied. "I was planning to visit Frost Snow Pavilion and happened upon you two." He glanced at Shuike. "Are you preparing a birthday gift for Xiaoxi?" A blank look crossed the princess's face as she looked to Ye Shi. "Xiaoxi, is your birthday coming up?" Ye Shi paused, nearly puzzled, then realization dawned. "Tomorrow. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten." "It's tomorrow?" Princess Shuike checked the time and figured she had enough to prepare something. "Brother, have you prepared a gift?" Before Shuike could finish, Shui Qinghei raised an eyebrow and a faint smile curved his mouth. He did not need to say more. Shuike understood. Her sisterly portion had long been arranged, and as crown prince, Shui Qinghei could draw from the imperial treasury for anything extra. His expression said it all. Pick whatever suits. "Let's stop shopping for now," Shuike decided. "I need to return to the palace first." Without waiting for a reply, she headed back toward the imperial palace. Ye Shi watched her go with a smile and then turned to Shui Qinghei. "Let's go back to Frost Snow Pavilion." He answered, and they walked together. As they moved through the crowd toward Frost Snow Pavilion, their conversation drifted to practical matters, most notably their impending departure from Heaven Do City and the plan to go to Slaughter City to gain experience. The city bustled around them, but the two walked calmly side by side, talking quietly about the journey ahead. Chapter 167. This is a talent back at Frost Snow Pavilion. Ye Shi and Crown Prince Shui Qinghe sat in the main hall, talking as if no one else were present. Hallmaster Ye, who was handling affairs nearby, twitched her ears and slowly raised her head to look at Ye Shi in the main seat. It sounded like she had just heard something unusual. From the Crown Prince's words, tomorrow was Ye Shi's birthday. If Hallmaster Ye hadn't known before, she did now, and naturally she had to make some preparations. "Aunt Ye, is something the matter?" Ye Shi asked, noticing Hallmaster Ye's attention. "No, I suddenly remembered something I forgot to handle. I'll take my leave for now." Hallmaster Ye bowed to Ye Shi and quietly left the hall. Ye Shi paid her no mind and continued her conversation with the Crown Prince. But word that tomorrow was Ye Shi's birthday quietly spread through Frost Snow Pavilion. Breaking Clan. In the somewhat hushed main hall, Yang Wudi sat in the main seat, flanked by Niu Gao, Hallmaster Ye, Dugu Bo, and other senior members of Frost Snow Pavilion. Niu Ben, Niu Gao's son, stood silently beside his father, listening. "Hallmaster Ye, is what you said true?" Yang Wudi asked, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. Their Breaking Clan had joined Frost Snow Pavilion when it was first founded years ago, yet he truly didn't know when Ye Shi's birthday was. Ye Shi had never mentioned it. "Yes, it's true," Hallmaster Ye replied seriously. "I happened to overhear it between the Pavilion Master and the Crown Prince." Everyone fell silent, minds already turning to what they should prepare. It was fine if they had been unaware before, but now that they knew, they ought to express their good wishes. "Old Rhinoceros, tomorrow is the Pavilion Master's birthday. What do you plan to give?" Yang Wudi asked Niu Gao. Although the Breaking Clan had grown richer over the years, they did not possess many precious items, and if their clan's valuables were presented at Frost Snow Pavilion, they might seem ordinary. Yang Wudi meant to see what Niu Gao would offer and follow suit. "Ahem, Dugu Bo, what about you?" he added, turning to Dugu Bo. Niu Gao looked at Dugu Bo instead of answering directly. "I think," Dugu Bo said calmly after sipping her tea, "what we give the Pavilion Master doesn't need to be very valuable, but it should carry good meaning. With the Pavilion Master's current status and the favor of the Heaven-Do royal family, what is there she might lack?" Dugu Bo smiled slightly. Her granddaughter Dugu Yan was close to Ye Shi, so Dugu Yan could handle the gift. After all, only girls truly understand what girls might appreciate. Yang Wudi and Niu Gao nodded in agreement. They both felt gifts didn't need to be extravagant, just meaningful. They turned to Hallmaster Ye, ready to hear her suggestion. But Hallmaster Ye had already closed her eyes and was resting, showing no intention of speaking. Silence stretched across the hall again. After a moment, Niu Ben's eyes brightened as if he'd thought of something. He leaned toward his father and whispered, "Father, I have an idea, but I don't know if I should say it." "If you've got an idea, say it. There are no outsiders here," Niu Gao urged. "If it needs to have a good meaning, we could give a tortoise," Niu Ben said earnestly. "It symbolizes longevity, and if nothing else, she could keep it as a pet." Everyone turned to look at Niu Ben. "What a talent," Yang Wudi said, half amused. "That's a great idea, though next time speak less." Dugu Bo nodded. Hallmaster Ye subtly rolled her eyes but remained silent. Niu Gao's face darkened. He raised his hand and smacked Niu Ben on the head. "Just stand there and listen. Don't speak unless you have to," he scolded. Niu Ben fell silent and resumed his quiet listening. After some discussion, Yang Wudi and Niu Gao reached a decision. Hallmaster Ye and Dugu Bo rose and left the hall. Yang Wudi and Niu Gao began making preparations. For a time, everyone at Frost Snow Pavilion, from the hallmasters down to the deacons, quietly prepared gifts for the next day. Whatever their value, the offerings would at least express their good wishes. In the main hall, unaware of all this, Ye Shi continued talking with Crown Prince Shui Qinghe. Just then, Tian Yao appeared, a faint, happy smile on her face. Ye Shi returned the smile and asked, "Tian Yao, has your spirit power reached the level 50 bottleneck?" Tian Yao looked surprised. "Young miss, I haven't said anything yet. How did you know?" "Does that even need saying?" Shui Qing replied with a faint smile. "Your expression says it all." Tian Yao gave an embarrassed smile. "Young miss, when will we attach the spirit ring? Once we do, we can go train." Before Ye Shi could answer, the Crown Prince's leisurely voice came from the side. "The day after tomorrow." "Tomorrow is Xiao Shi's birthday. After that, you two can leave Heaven Dew City. How does that sound? Yeshi nodded. Okay, let's leave the day after tomorrow. It doesn't make much difference to wait one more day. Tian Yao, standing below, caught the key point in the Crown Prince's words. Tomorrow was Yeshi's birthday. Chapter 168, Birthday Gift. Tian Yao, you should go back and prepare first, Yeshi said. We won't be leaving for a short time, Tian Yao replied. Yeshi looked at her with a serious expression. Young miss, I understand. I'll go and prepare now. Tian Yao nodded solemnly and took her leave, heading out of Frost Snow Pavilion. After Tian Yao left, Yeshi glanced at the clock. It was late. She turned to Shui Qinghe. It's getting late. I should go and make some preparations and arrange the affairs of Frost Snow Pavilion, he said. Rising, he stroked Yeshi's hair lightly before stepping out. Yeshi smiled as he went, then headed toward the back hall. Walking along the corridor, she considered the matters she had to settle before leaving Heaven Dew City. This trip to Slaughter City would last a while. Frost Snow Pavilion needed to be left in capable hands. Yet Qingxie could manage the daily duties, but major decisions required someone with authority. Yang Wudi, Niu Gao, and others were unsuitable. Ling Yuan, however, was the obvious choice. Skilled, respected, and the natural leader. Yeshi made her way to Ling Yuan's room. She reached the door and was about to knock when it opened, and Ling Yuan appeared. Young miss, Ling Yuan greeted with a slight bow, her voice gentle. Yeshi spoke plainly. Ling Yuan, the day after tomorrow, I'll be taking Tian Yao to Slaughter City for training. While I'm gone, Frost Snow Pavilion will be under your command. Yi Qingxie can handle day-to-day affairs, but if there's anything you can't decide, seek out my elder sister. Ling Yuan stepped aside to let Yeshi in. Once Yeshi was seated, Ling Yuan finally spoke. Young miss, I think it would be safest to have the young lord temporarily oversee the pavilion. Yeshi considered this, then shook her head. I thought of asking my elder sister as well, but she has many duties. I don't want to trouble her. If you accept, I have confidence in you. Ling Yuan bowed, resolute. I will not fail your trust. Yeshi smiled faintly. One more thing, about adding spirit rings for you and Tian Yao. Before Ling Yuan could finish, Yeshi continued. Tian Yao and I will take Ghost Leopard with us. He will help us add the rings and escort us to Slaughter City. You just need to stay and oversee Frost Snow Pavilion. Understood, young miss, Ling Yuan said, relieved. Yeshi rose and left, and Ling Yuan watched her go. Back in her own rooms, Yeshi found Zhang Meng waiting at the door. Young miss, the maid greeted with a bow. Come in, Yeshi said. She stepped inside and sat on the bed. Zhang Meng, help me pack a few light outfits and some daily necessities. While Zhang Meng moved to the wardrobe, Yeshi took a fruit and ate slowly. Then she sat cross-legged on the bed and closed her eyes to cultivate. Although her spirit power had already reached the rank 50 bottleneck, continuing her cultivation would still increase her reserves. The gains would simply become evident after attaching her 5th spirit ring. Early the next morning, Yeshi opened her eyes from meditation. Zhang Meng was asleep at the desk. Several garments and items lay beside the bed. Yeshi stowed them in her storage bracelet and rose. The movement woke Zhang Meng. You're up, young miss. Zhang Meng stood and moved to fetch washing utensils. As Zhang Meng reached for the door, she froze. In the hall outside, a line of people stood on either side. Shui Qinghe, Shui Ke, Ye Qingshui, Yang Wudi, Du Nu Bo, Tian Yao, Du Guyan, Ye Lingling, and many of the mid- and high-ranking members of Frost Snow Pavilion. Each of them held an exquisitely wrapped gift box. Zhang Meng blinked, bewildered. You all are? Today is Xiaoxi's birthday. We came to present gifts. Shui Qinghe said softly. Is Xiaoxi awake? Someone asked. Zhang Meng hesitated. Young miss just woke up and hasn't washed yet. No hurry. We'll wait. Shui Qinghe waved as if it were no trouble. Zhang Meng glanced back into the room at Yeshi for instructions. From inside, Yeshi's voice came clear and composed. Please, invite the Crown Prince, the Princess, and all the hall masters and senior officials to the front hall. I'll be there shortly. Zhang Meng bowed and stepped forward to usher everyone to the front hall. After they left, she returned to prepare the washing utensils for Yeshi. Chapter 169, Gorgeous. After washing, Yeshi sat at her dressing table while the maid Zhang Meng combed her silver hair. Miss, today is your birthday, Zhang Meng said softly. Shall we dress more formally? Yeshi studied her reflection for a moment and nodded. All right, go fetch the first outfit from the wardrobe. Yeshi waved, and Zhongmeng went to the wardrobe and drew out the first set. It was a long, formal gown of silver, studded with dozens of glittering gems. One look, and it spoke of nobility. A matching silver hair crown, exquisitely crafted, completed the set. After Yeshi changed, Zhongmeng couldn't help staring. Is something wrong? Yeshi asked. There's nothing wrong, miss, Zhongmeng protested, flushing. It's just after you put this on, you're simply too beautiful, like a star fallen into the mortal world, so beautiful, unparalleled. Yeshi called her a chatterbox and tapped Zhongmeng on the head, but a smile curved her lips. She was clearly pleased. Today's my birthday. Later, take all the maids from the back hall to the front hall to receive a reward from Aunt Yi. 10 gold pieces each. That should cheer everyone up. Zhongmeng's eyes widened. For ordinary servants, 10 gold pieces a head was extravagant. After a brief moment of stunned delight, she hurried off to gather the maids and lead them forward once matters in the main hall were concluded. In the main hall of the Frost Snow Pavilion, Shui-Te and Shui-Ke sat on the guest seats to the left. Ye Qing-Shui, Yang Wudi, Niu Gao, Du Gubo, and other senior officials occupied the side seats, with middle-ranked attendants standing near the rear. The hall was quiet when clear footsteps broke the silence. All eyes turned to the back entrance as Yeshi entered, flanked by Ling Yuan and Ghost Leopard. Admiration spread at once through the gathered company. Shui Qinghe watched Yeshi and secretly nodded to himself. If beauty could be rated, he would give her a 9.5, slightly less than before. The only missing thing, he thought, was proportion. Yeshi's figure was still that of a 14-year-old, not yet fully developed. Brother, Xiaoxi is so pretty, Shui-Ke whispered, nudging him, her gaze fixed on Yeshi. Even that outfit is the first I've seen her wear, she added in a low voice. Compose yourself, Shui Qinghe murmured, picking up a cup of tea and sipping calmly. You're an imperial princess. Remain unfazed even if a mountain collapses before you. Shui-Ke stopped fidgeting, but never took her eyes off Yeshi. Tian Yao, Du Guyan, and Ye Lingling exchanged looks full of admiration, then returned their attention to her. The others, Ye Qingshui, Yang Wudi, Niu Gao, Du Gubo, nodded respectfully but said nothing. Yeshi smiled, acknowledged them with a small nod, and took the main seat. Ling Yuan and Ghost Leopard stood behind her on either side. Ye Qingshui rose, bowed, and glanced toward Ye Lingling, who stepped forward with 2 finely made gift boxes. Aunt Ye, I happen to prepare a small present for your birthday, Ye Qingshui said as Ye Lingling set the boxes before Yeshi. Thank you, Aunt Ye, Yeshi answered gently. Ye Lingling offered a rare smile. This one is from my mother, she explained. The second I specially chose for you. One by one, prompted by Yangshui, the others presented their gifts. When it came time for Shui-Ke and Shui Qinghe, Shui-Ke hesitated, studying the pile of offerings. Brother, when should we present ours? She asked quietly. Shui Qinghe set his teacup down and waved his hand with practiced calm. No rush. If we present them now, ours might end up at the bottom. Wait until the others are done, then ours will be on top. She'll open ours first. Shui-Ke's eyes brightened at the plan, and she settled back, no longer anxious. The hall filled with congratulations and the rustle of gifts being laid down. Yeshi thanked each person sincerely as their offerings were placed before her. When the senior and middle-ranked officials had finished, all eyes shifted to the guest seats. Shui-Ke rose first and walked forward, a small smile on her face. Xiaoxi, I chose this especially for you. I hope you like it. She set her gift carefully in front of Yeshi. Chapter 170. How can one family have 2 surnames? Looking at the gift box Shui-Ke had brought, Yeshi thanked her politely. Just as Shui-Ke was about to say more, someone tapped Yeshi's shoulder. She turned to find Shui Qinghe standing beside her. Xiaoxi, I picked this for you. I hope you like it. Shui Qinghe set another gift box before Yeshi and spoke in a gentle voice. Thank you, Shui Qinghe. Yeshi accepted the gift. Her eyes, however, kept drifting back to the box in curiosity. Shui Qinghe only smiled and said nothing more, but as he turned to leave, he gave Yeshi a small, discreet wink. She blinked back. Shui Qinghe and Shui-Ke both returned to their seats. Yeshi scanned the room, then stood. Her lips parted and a clear, melodic voice rang out like an Oriel's song. Today is my birthday, and I am very grateful for all the gifts. She then looked down at Ye Qingshui. Aunt Ye, please go to the best hotel in Heaven Dew City and book the entire venue. All expenses today will be covered by Frost's Snow Pavilion. I've already sent people to prepare everything last night. We can go straight there, Ye Qingshe replied respectfully. Ye Shi smiled appreciatively. Then let's go now. Ling Yuan, fetch the maids from the back hall as well. Yes, young miss, Ling Yuan replied and hurried off. Ghost Leopard followed close behind Ye Shi. After Ye Shi stepped down from the main seat, Shui Qinghe rose and approached her. Xiao Shi, I still have state affairs at the Imperial Palace I must attend. I won't be able to come to the banquet, he said, sounding genuinely regretful. That's fine. Imperial matters come first, Ye Shi replied lightly. Are you sure you won't come? Shui Ke whispered to Shui Qinghe. No, I can't attend this time. Be composed at the banquet. You represent our family. With that, Shui Qinghe left the hall. Ye Shi stepped out of Frost's Snow Pavilion and made her way to the hotel Ye Qingshe had booked. Ye Qingshe led the remaining guests from the pavilion to the hotel entrance. The hotel was grand. The first 3 floors were for lower and middle-ranking members and their attendants, while only high-ranking members and special guests were taken to the private rooms on the 4th floor. Ye Shi was shown to a private room on the top floor. Inside the 4th floor private room, Ye Shi scanned the seating and told the staff, add another seat next to the main seat. She then sat in the main chair and waited. The attendant placed an extra chair beside her as requested. Soon, Shui Ke, Ye Qingshui, Yang Wudi, Niu Gao, Dugu Bo, Tian Yao, Dugu Yan, Ye Lingling, and other senior members entered and took their places. When they noticed the added chair beside Ye Shi, surprise flickered across their faces. A seat next to the main one signified a status equal to Ye Shi's within Frost Snow Pavilion. Outsiders, no matter how high their rank, would still sit in guest seats on the pavilion's home turf. They glanced at the empty chair, pondering, and then naturally thought of one likely occupant, Ye Shi's older sister. Although she rarely appeared at the pavilion, the senior members knew of her. Ghost Leopard, you may sit as well, Ye Shi said softly to the figure standing behind her. Yes, young miss. Ghost Leopard sat in a nearby empty seat. Shortly after, Ling Yuan arrived and after reporting to Ye Shi, took another seat. Only one seat remained empty, the one beside Ye Shi. No one spoke. They waited in silence. Time ticked by, and about 20 minutes later the doors opened. Sorry I'm late, a pleasant voice called. Qian Renshui stepped into the room. She scanned the seating, then walked directly to Ye Shi and sat in the chair beside her. Older sister. Ye Shi's face lit up. This is for you. Qian Renshui produced a gift box and placed it in Ye Shi's hands. Ye Shi slipped the present into her storage bracelet, intending to open it after the banquet. Shui Ke's gaze shifted repeatedly between the two sisters, eyes fluttering. Ye Shi introduced Qian Renshui. Shui Ke, this is my older sister, Qian Renshui. Shui Ke looked from Ye Shi to Qian Renshui, as if confirming something. Odd, she thought. How could family members have different surnames? And how these two sisters, one with golden hair and golden eyes, the other with silver hair and blue eyes, could look so dissimilar? She kept her questions to herself and offered a polite greeting. Qian Renshui returned the greeting gracefully. Chapter 171, The Fifth Soul Ring. After everyone had arrived, Ye Shi gave Ling Yuan a subtle look, signaling her to tell the staff the banquet could begin. Ling Yuan immediately stepped out of the private room to inform them. Once Ling Yuan left, Shui Ke leaned in slightly toward the Ghost Leopard. Your Excellency Ghost Leopard, I have a question, she murmured. Are Xiao Shi and this elder sister really biological sisters? They don't look alike to me, and if they are, why do they have different surnames? Shui Ke kept her voice low, curiosity shining in her eyes. The Ghost Leopard glanced up toward the ceiling as if he hadn't heard, an obvious refusal to answer. He of all people knew the truth, but it was not something he could voice. Today was Ye Shi's birthday, and everyone present was a senior member of Frost Snow Pavilion. If he admitted Ye Shi was adopted, how could he remain in the pavilion? Beyond that, with the tensions between the Supreme Pontiff Palace and the Hall of Offerings in Spirit Hall, such a confession would be dangerous. Even the current Supreme Pontiff still addressed her as Miss Yer. Seeing Ghost Leopard's silence, Shui Ke fell quiet and shifted her gaze to the others. No one met her eyes. Some stared at the ceiling, others at their teacups. Although Shui Ke had spoken softly, The weakest person present, Ye Qingshui, had cultivated past 70 ranks and could hear well enough. A few others hadn't caught the remark at all: Tian Yao, Du Guyan, Ye Lingling, and so on. Qian Renshui and Ye Shi cast subtle glances at Shui Ke, but neither reacted to the question. Soon, Ling Yuan returned and the banquet began. Cups clinked, laughter rose, and Ye Shi even toasted the guests several times with tea instead of wine. After 3 rounds of drinking and 5 courses, the evening passed as a joyous celebration for hosts and guests alike. When Ye Shi checked the time and realized it was already evening, she left Frost Snow Pavilion with Qian Renshui, Ling Yuan, and Ghost Leopard trailing behind. Ye Qingshui would handle the remaining matters. Walking along the dim street, Ye Shi linked her arm with Qian Renshui and smiled faintly. "You're leaving Heaven Do City with Tian Yao tomorrow. How are things set at Frost Snow Pavilion?" "Everything's been taken care of," Qian Renshui replied softly. "When will you return?" "Half a year at the soonest, a year at the longest. I'll try to be back before the competition." Qian Renshui's tone grew serious. "Slaughter City isn't like other places. You must be careful, Xiaoxi." Ye Shi answered lightly, though she felt less at ease than her words suggested. Though she had started training on the continent early, she had always been protected by a titled Douluo. This trip to Slaughter City would be different. It was real training, with no guaranteed protector. "When are you leaving tomorrow?" 9 in the morning. "Ghost Leopard will drive us, and we'll add a spirit ring on the way, find a suitable beast to fight. When you return, I'll host a welcoming feast." Qian Renshui smiled. Together they went back into Frost Snow Pavilion, and everyone else dispersed. Because Ye Shi was leaving the next day, Qian Renshui stayed in the pavilion rather than returning to the imperial palace. They shared an antique decor room and, after a few casual words, fell asleep quickly. The next morning at 9, a carriage waited in front of Frost Snow Pavilion. Ghost Leopard sat at the front, ready to drive. Ye Shi popped her head out of the window, waved at Qian Renshui, and winked playfully. Qian Renshui smiled and waved back until the carriage disappeared from sight. "Xiaoxi, I'll wait for your return in Heaven Do City," Qian Renshui called before turning back into the pavilion. Once the carriage had gone, Ghost Leopard asked, "Young miss, which spirit beast forest shall we go to first to add a spirit ring?" Ye Shi's eyes brightened. "Stardo Great Forest." She had already decided on a target for her 5th spirit ring, the dark demonic evil god Tiger. It wasn't just its terrifying attack power that drew her, its attributes were exceptional. The tiger carried the evil attribute plus darkness, lightning, space, and time, and it had a growth-dependent devouring ability. Getting any one of space, time, or devouring would be valuable. Getting 2 would be a huge gain. If she managed to acquire all of them, it would be a true heaven-defying spirit ability. More than just strength, it would come with great luck. "Very well, young miss," Ghost Leopard replied, and they headed toward the Stardew Great Forest. Inside the carriage, Tian Yao watched the passing scenery with a thoughtful expression. She too was considering her 5th spirit ring. "Young miss," she asked, turning to Ye Shi, "what do you think about choosing a spirit beast with strong offensive abilities for my 5th ring?" "No problem," Ye Shi said without hesitation. "But if you run into a spirit beast with special abilities, that's worth considering too. You don't lack attack-type spirit abilities right now." "Special abilities?" Tian Yao repeated, then nodded as she considered the idea. Chapter 172. Goodbye, Azure Bull. Python Ye Shi closed her eyes and rested. Tian Yao sat cross-legged in the carriage, meditating and cultivating. After that, everything fell silent. Under Ghost Leopard's guidance, the carriage gradually picked up speed. 3 days later, the carriage slowed at the entrance to the Stardew Great Forest. The door opened, and Ye Shi and Tian Yao stepped out, heading into the trees. Ghost Leopard fell in behind them without a sound, watching for danger. They did not linger in the outer woods. They went straight deeper. Only once they reached the region dominated by 10,000-year spirit beasts did Ghost Leopard release his mental force, searching for suitable spirit rings for Ye Shi and Tian Yao while scoping the area. Soon he realized something was off. Ye Shi showed no sign of slowing. She kept heading inward. "Young miss," Ghost Leopard said, "if you want spirit rings, the 10,000-year zone should be enough. Going deeper takes us into the core area." Though he spoke, He did not slow his pace. Tian Yao looked puzzled, but trusted Yexi's judgment and stayed quiet. "We're going to the core area," Yexi said simply. "The Sky Azure Bull Python and the Titan Giant Ape owe me a favor." She gave no more explanation. This couldn't be summed up quickly. Ghost Leopard hesitated for a moment, then stopped pressing. In his mind, he was already planning a retreat. One-on-one, he believed he could hold his own against either the Sky Azure Bull Python or the Titan Giant Ape. Maybe not win, but retreat safely. If they faced both at once, there would be no debate. He would grab Yexi and Tian Yao and run. Ghost Leopard's confidence rested on his speed. He was an agility attack titled Douluo, built to move fast. In the core area, Xiao Wu sat on the Titan Giant Ape's broad shoulder, watching the forest calmly, a faint smile on her lips. The Titan Giant Ape suddenly rose to his feet, his gaze fixed toward the trees, as if he had sensed something. "What's wrong, Erming?" Xiao Wu asked, puzzled. She did not hear an answer. Instead came the sound of rushing water. From the life lake, the Sky Azure Bull Python surfaced. His own gaze turned to the same direction. "Da Ming, why did you come out too?" Xiao Wu said, surprised. The Sky Azure Bull Python rarely left the life lake unless something important occurred. "Humans have come," the Sky Azure Bull Python said. "One of them is a half-acquaintance," he added, and Xiao Wu looked toward the trees with renewed interest. Through their senses, they clearly felt human presences approaching the core area. The half-acquaintance was Yi, someone he had met a few times over the past 2 years. Under the watchful eyes of the Sky Azure Bull Python, the Titan Giant Ape, and Xiao Wu, Yexi and her companions emerged from the trees. "Long time no see, Sky Azure Bull Python, Titan Giant Ape," Yexi called, waving. Her eyes flicked to Xiao Wu perched on the ape's shoulder. Ghost Leopard stepped forward, placing himself between Yexi and the two massive spirit beasts, his stance guarded. "Doesn't seem that long," the Sky Azure Bull Python replied, his tone cool and indifferent. For spirit beasts, 2 years was barely a moment. "Why have you come?" he asked, measuring Yexi. Yexi began to answer. "I came here, naturally for," but then she caught the sensation of being watched. Because her spirit, the Slaughter Angel, was tuned to deathly intent, she felt a thread of murderous focus probing her. Her azure eyes scanned the surroundings. It was not the Sky Azure Bull Python, the Titan Giant Ape, or Xiao Wu who watched her. "What's going on?" Yexi said aloud. "Are there other humans or spirit beasts around?" She was certain she hadn't imagined it, yet she couldn't find where the feeling came from. It seemed to vanish as if it had never existed. Yexi tried again, forcing her voice steady. "Just tell us directly what you need." "We spirit beasts honor our promises," the Sky Azure Bull Python replied. "The Titan Giant Ape and I owe you a favor. If it's within our capabilities, we will help." Yexi took a steadying breath and pushed down the unease. "I lack a spirit ring," she said bluntly. "My target is the dark demonic evil god tiger. I hope you can help me." She spoke without evasion. The Sky Azure Bull Python was about to respond when a small, blood-red, sword-shaped mark suddenly appeared in the center of Yexi's forehead. At the same time, the feeling of being watched vanished, as if it had never been there. The mark flashed into being and was gone in the span of a few blinks. The Sky Azure Bull Python, the Titan Giant Ape, and Xiao Wu all saw it, but none of them commented. It wasn't their affair. "The dark demonic evil god tiger is a spirit beast too," the Sky Azure Bull Python said slowly. "You ask us to help hunt one of our own. Do you think that appropriate?" His voice remained level, but Yexi watched his face closely. "The dark demonic evil god tiger devours spirit power," Yexi said softly. "Because of that, other spirit beasts will attack it. Right now, it's weaker than you two, so you're safe. But if it truly grows powerful, it's hard to say whether you might become its target." As she spoke, Yexi watched for changes in the expressions of the Sky Azure Bull Python and the Titan Giant Ape. Chapter 173, Dark Demon Tiger. The Titan Giant Ape looked to the Sky Azure Bull Python, waiting for his reply. Xiao Wu didn't speak, but she nodded. As a spirit beast in human form, she understood the dark demonic evil god tiger's devouring nature. The tiger's reputation in the Stardew Great Forest was infamous, and that was no exaggeration. "Indeed," the Sky Azure Bull Python agreed. "If the dark demonic evil god tiger is stronger than us, it will target us and devour us to grow stronger. So, we should help." He turned to the Titan giant ape. Erming, take them to find the dark demonic evil god tiger. Help them if you can. Xiao Wuji, you stay by Life Lake. I'll guard you, the Titan giant ape replied. The Titan giant ape set Xiao Wu down from his shoulder and then waved to Ye Shi and the others to follow. Ye Shi snapped her fingers. Ghost Leopard and Tian Yao fell in step behind the Titan giant ape. After they left, Xiao Wu looked anxiously at the Sky Azure Bull Python. Daming, will Erming be all right? He will, the Sky Azure Bull Python said confidently. With the Titan giant ape's strength, if Ye Shi and her companions had any hostile intentions, the ape could hold them off long enough for the Sky Azure Bull Python to come to his aid. He wouldn't have allowed Erming to take them otherwise. Besides, while the Sky Azure Bull Python had no fondness for humans, he held no real grudge against Ye Shi. After all, because Ye Shi came to report, he had successfully brought Xiao Wu back and, in the process, permanently dealt with that titled Douluo in the Stardo Great Forest, at least as far as he believed. Deeper in the forest, Ye Shi, Tian Yao, and Ghost Leopard followed the Titan giant ape's lead. Inside Ye Shi's spirit sea, a Sura god reclined against the slaughter sword, stroking his chin, eyes thoughtful. That look that glanced at the girl, probably a Dragon Clan remnant, he muttered. Should I report it to the main body? No. Dragon Clan are just a few stragglers now. No need to bother them. Besides, Dragon God once said that unless Dragon God reappears, spirit beasts aren't allowed to become gods. Nothing to worry about. With that, Asura God's phantom dissipated into specks of light and folded back into a wisp of divine thought within Ye Shi's spirit sea. Ye Shi watched the Titan giant ape ahead, her azure eyes flickering as she replayed the sensation of being watched. The original story flashed through her mind. The Titan giant ape was the king of the Stardo Great Forest in that account, while the Sky Azure Bull Python was the emperor. There were no other overly powerful spirit beasts in the forest then. In the timeline of Douluo Dalu 2, even stronger spirit beasts like Ditian existed, but that era should still be far off. Ditian ought to be slumbering. Wait, slumber. A chill ran through Ye Shi as a new thought formed. Titan giant ape, she asked suddenly. Have you ever heard the name Ditian? The Titan giant ape's strides faltered. He glanced back at her, then nodded slightly, encouraging her to continue. When Ye Shi spoke the name clearly, a flicker of shock passed through the ape's enormous eyes. As if surprised, she knew it. He quickly masked it with indifference, shaking his head to deny knowledge, and resumed leading the way. Ye Shi's mind temporarily froze. Although he denied it, she had seen that flash of recognition. That meant Ditian and the others could indeed be hidden in Life Lake, or possibly already awake. But that didn't make sense. Even if Ditian had awakened, why would he target her? Her strength wasn't worth Ditian's notice. Her thoughts raced until one name rose up: Spirit Beast Co-Lord. If it were the Spirit Beast Co-Lord, then the watching gaze and the lingering hints of killing intent at Life Lake could be explained. She was a candidate for Asura God's legacy, and the Spirit Beast Co-Lord had a grudge against Asura God. Indeed, against the God realm as a whole. That could also explain why the scrutinizing gaze had abruptly disappeared. Asura God, after all, excelled at exploiting loopholes to do what was necessary. Stardew Great Forest, Ye Shi decided, she should come here as little as possible from now on, especially the core area's Life Lake. That place was a forbidden land within a forbidden land. They pressed on. Soon the Titan giant ape led them to an eerily quiet place. No roars, no birdsong, only a heavy silence. He stopped and pointed ahead, indicating they had reached the dark demonic evil god tiger's location. Ye Shi and Ghost Leopard tensed. After a short distance, a tiger's roar split the silence. The beast that emerged was enormous, about 8 meters long, and entirely jet black without any other markings. Even the character for king on its forehead was black, but it radiated a gloomy, misty presence. Its crimson eyes burned with ferocity and grim purpose. A pair of black wings fluttered gently, and a massive barb on the upright tail flashed with a cold, cutting light. Seeing the spirit beast before her, Ye Shi knew at once that this was the creature they'd come for, the dark, demonic, evil god tiger. Chapter 174, Besiege the Dark Demon Tiger. While Ye Shi watched the dark, demonic, evil god tiger, the beast watched them in return. Its violent gaze swept over everyone and settled on the Titan giant ape, a clear flicker of apprehension in its eyes. "Titan giant ape, why have you brought these humans into my territory?" A sinister voice rumbled from the dark demonic evil god tiger. As a spirit beast of the Stardew Great Forest, it of course knew the Titan giant ape, though their relationship was far from friendly. In truth, the dark demonic evil god tiger didn't get along with most spirit beasts in the forest. Whenever it left its domain and its trail was discovered, it would be attacked by packs. The Titan giant ape ignored the tiger's question and instead looked to Ye Shi, its meaning plain: should it strike or hold back? "Ghost leopard, it's your call." Ye Shi spoke softly, stepping back a few paces and pulling Tian Yao with her to keep a safe distance. Ghost leopard gave a slight nod, and his spirit, the black-striped ghost leopard, materialized behind him. With spirit manifestation, 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 5 black spirit rings flared beneath his feet, 9 rings in total. Immediately, Ghost Leopard moved toward the dark demonic evil god tiger. The Titan giant ape leapt high and smashed its massive fist toward the beast. The dark demonic evil god tiger's expression darkened, but it did not panic. It had survived in the Stardew Great Forest for 50,000 years, nearing 60,000, and it had grown used to relying on its own strength. Its claws swept, and dozens of black and red light blades shot out to meet Ghost Leopard and the Titan giant ape. When the blades struck, Ghost Leopard felt his heart sink. This attack intensity, it's on par with a 50,000-year attack spirit ability. Handling it will be troublesome. Still, Ghost Leopard reacted quickly. 5th spirit ability, Ethereal Shadow Step. The 5th spirit ring beneath him flashed. With the ability active, his speed nearly doubled. To the eye, only after images remained. The Titan giant ape didn't dodge the blades. It slammed its huge fist into them, creating rippling energy. The dark demonic evil god tiger issued a roar, and a sphere of gray light condensed around it. Wind, lightning, and evil attributed energy burst outward in indiscriminate attacks. While avoiding the tiger's assaults, Ghost Leopard's spirit rings continued to blaze, striking back. The Titan giant ape was slow but devastating. Each blow that landed forced the tiger to roar. Ye Shi gripped Tian Yao's arm and backed up a few more steps. "Hiss, this dark demonic evil god tiger is so strong. Even Ghost Leopard and the Titan giant ape together can't take it down quickly," Tian Yao said, impressed. From what they could see, although they had the advantage, they couldn't bring the tiger to the verge of death fast enough for Ye Shi to finish it off. A top-tier spirit beast like this, once it reaches the 10,000-year level, can challenge 100,000-year spirit beasts across ranks. This one's close to 60,000 years. Its true strength may not be weaker than an ordinary 100,000-year spirit beast. Ye Shi's voice was grave, her blue eyes fixed on the tiger. Under the coordinated assault from Ghost Leopard and the Titan giant ape, the dark demonic evil god tiger suddenly increased its speed, not toward its assailants, but instead charging straight for Ye Shi and Tian Yao at the rear. Its movement at that moment was blistering, verging on teleportation. Even Ghost Leopard, an agility attack titled Douluo, was slightly slower. "Young miss, watch out." Ghost Leopard warned and surged, but he couldn't quite catch up. Ye Shi didn't need the warning. As the dark demonic evil god tiger bore down, she manifested her spirit, 8-winged slaughter angel. 1 yellow, 2 purple, and 1 black spirit rings flickered beneath her feet. She pulled Tian Yao behind her and activated her spirit abilities in quick succession. First spirit ability, Blood Soul Blessing. Second spirit ability, Soul Devouring Gaze. Third spirit ability, Blade of Slaughter. The first 2 were amplification type abilities, granting Ye Shi substantial attribute boosts and powerful amplification effects. The Blade of Slaughter formed in her left hand. The divine artifact Slaughter Sword appeared in her right. The Slaughter domain spread out from her like a ripple. The Blade of Slaughter and the Slaughter Sword crossed and slashed at the incoming tiger. There was a single clash. The Blade of Slaughter, a spirit-formed blade, shattered the moment it met the tiger's claws, disintegrating into motes of light. The Slaughter Sword, however, cut cleanly through the tiger's claw and opened a long wound along its flank. Crimson blood sprayed like a burst of flowers. The force of the strike sent Ye Shi sliding backward. Tian Yao reached to steady her but was dragged along until they both stopped after more than 10 meters. The dark demonic evil god tiger stared at the wound, stunned. Under the sustained attack of Ghost Leopard and the Titan giant ape, it hadn't suffered such injuries, yet an attack from a young girl had wounded it now. Seizing the moment of hesitation, Ghost Leopard appeared beside the tiger and swept a leg, sending its body flying. It crashed heavily toward the Titan giant ape. Before the tiger could recover, the Titan giant ape's huge fist came down and smashed into it. Chapter was 75, absorbed the fifth soul ring. The Titan giant ape's blows rained down on the dark demonic evil god tiger, forcing fresh blood from its jaws. Just as the tiger finally saw a chance to break free from the ape's assault, the Ghost Leopard's voice rang out from the side. Ninth Spirit Ability, Void Realm Shadow. The ninth spirit ring beneath the Ghost Leopard flared. A terrifying blast of power slammed into the dark demonic evil god tiger, sending it tumbling and carving deep cracks into the hard earth. Crimson blood streamed from its wounds. It tried to rise, but the Titan giant ape shoved it back to the ground. Titan giant ape, why would a spirit beast help humans hunt me? The dark demonic evil god tiger rasped, its voice thin but full of hate. It was a top-tier spirit beast with extraordinary talent. If it had lived and trained to the extreme, it might have become an evil god. Now it was fated to fall here. How could it accept that? And to be felled by one of its own clan who sided with humans, resentment burned in its eyes. There was no answer coming. From above, Yexi's blade of slaughter plunged down and pierced the tiger's skull. As the blade withdrew, a blossom of blood filled the air and rained to the ground, symbols of the dark demonic evil god tiger's final demise. A dark spirit ring rose from the corpse. Yexi did not hesitate. She sat cross-legged and guided spirit power into the ring, pulling it toward her. Tianyao watched, then stepped to the side beside the Ghost Leopard. The Ghost Leopard turned its gaze to the Titan giant ape. Respected king of the forest, the leopard intoned with cool formality. The matter is concluded. Return to the core area, the Titan giant ape rumbled. The young miss is absorbing. She cannot be disturbed, the Ghost Leopard replied. After a few more glances at the fallen tiger, the Titan giant ape inclined its massive head and strode off toward the life lake in the core area. When it was gone, the Ghost Leopard maintained a vigilant guard around Yexi and Tianyao. Time slipped by. Sweat bead by bead appeared on Yexi's brow as she drew the dark demonic evil god tiger's spirit into her being. Absorbing a 10,000-year spirit ring always caused a soul tremor. This one was fiercer than she had expected. Inside Yexi's sea of spirit, the dark demonic evil god tiger's soul manifested, eyes full of contempt as it roared. The 8-winged slaughter angel spirit in her sea reacted like a living thing, rushing to clash with the tiger's soul. Its blows hammered the spectral tiger again and again, each strike thinning the tiger's essence. The tiger lashed its barbed tail, but the angel dodged effortlessly, seized the tail, and slammed the tiger's soul into the sea of spirit. The Asura god's divine thought drifted into view, watching with interest. "Good fight. Smash it harder," the Asura god murmured, his attention fixed on the skirmish. He had no real worry about Yexi's endurance. If she failed, his presence could still hold the line. The tiger's soul continued to weaken until, with one last assault from the 8-winged slaughter angel, it dissolved into motes of light and vanished. The angel returned to its place, motionless, and the Asura god withdrew his figure. In the world beyond, Yexi's breathing steadied and the sweat on her brow cooled. The Ghost Leopard exhaled audibly. If Yexi had faltered, he had been prepared to forcibly interrupt the absorption. Losing a rare spirit ring would have been worth preserving her life. Night passed quickly. At dawn, Yexi opened her azure eyes and breathed out slowly. She felt the shift in her spirit power and a new ability blooming within her. A satisfied smile curved her lips. Her spirit power had risen to a full 54 ranks. 2 ranks came from absorbing the dark demonic evil god tiger's spirit ring. The other 2 had accumulated when she had broken through a bottleneck. But what thrilled Yexi most was the new spirit ability she had gained, Evil God Descent. 5th spirit ability, Evil God Descent. After activation, the user transforms into an evil god state. In this state, they temporarily gain the attributes of evil, space, lightning, and wind. They can devour an opponent's spirit power to replenish their own and heal injuries. and all personal attributes are boosted by 200%. To Yeshi, this fifth spirit ability was effectively a divine ability. In team fights, she planned to first use her first and second spirit abilities to stack amplifying effects, then trigger fifth spirit ability, Evil God Descent. With that up, she would use the third spirit ability, the Blade of Slaughter, to pin a target, devour their spirit power to replenish herself and mend wounds, then finish them with the divine artifact Slaughter Sword. If overwhelmed, she could call on her fourth spirit ability, Angel Roar. Magnified by Evil God Descent, it could carry evil, lightning, and wind attributes, and use the space attribute of Evil God Descent as a last resort escape. The combination felt flawless to her. Yishi rose, energy humming through her. She nodded to the Ghost Leopard and Tian Yao and walked over to them. Chapter 176, Evil God Pearl. After only 2 steps, Yeshi suddenly paused, her blue eyes fixed on the corpse of the dark demonic evil god tiger. If she remembered correctly, that tiger had carried an evil god bead. After so much time, she wondered if it might still be inside the body. With that thought, she stopped hesitating. The slaughter sword appeared in her hand, and she drove it decisively into the tiger's corpse, searching for the bead. "Young miss, are you looking for a spirit bone?" Tian Yao asked softly as she moved to Yishi's side, watching her. "No, something else." Yishi answered casually, then asked, "Tian Yao, Ghost Leopard, while I was absorbing the spirit ring, did anything fly out of the dark demonic evil god tiger's body? Any strange energy fluctuations?" She guided the slaughter sword deeper, probing carefully. "No," Ghost Leopard answered confidently. "While you were absorbing the spirit ring, there were no abnormalities. Nothing left the tiger's body." Ghost Leopard had been monitoring the surroundings with his mental perception the entire time. Even the tiniest disturbance would not have escaped him. "That's good," Yeshi murmured. A clear, metallic ding rang out as the sword struck something. With a flick of the blade, a dark purple bead rolled free from the tiger's carcass and landed in Yeshi's palm. The bead radiated a strong, malevolent aura, with strange energy seething within. "What is this?" Tian Yao leaned in to examine it. "This is an evil god bead," Ghost Leopard said. "As far as I know, it contains the dark demonic evil god tiger's entire origin energy. It's an extremely valuable item." A smile tugged at Yeshi's mouth. The haul from this trip had far exceeded her expectations. Not only had she gained an evil god descent, a divine ability, but she had also claimed the evil god bead. A sudden voice sounded in Yeshi's mind. She recognized Asura God's presence immediately. Without hesitation, she placed the bead into her mind sea and watched its behavior. The bead floated to the top of her mind sea and hovered, emanating pure energy. That energy divided into 2 streams. One flowed into Yeshi's spirit, making it feel enlivened. The other seeped into her body, strengthening her physique. At that moment, Asura God's phantom manifested in the mind sea and focused on the bead. He extended a finger. A thread of blood-red light streamed from his fingertip into the bead. Yeshi felt the bead's output drop by more than half. "I'm doing this for your own good," Asura God said. "Absorbing it too quickly will backfire. Taking it in slowly like this is best for you and minimizes negative effects." His figure broke into motes of light and slipped back into the slaughter sword. Yishi nodded. She wasn't sure exactly what negative effects he had in mind, but she could guess. Her spirit already leaned toward the malicious, and her path was one of slaughter. If she absorbed the bead's energy too quickly, she might be corrupted like the dark demonic evil god tiger, turning into an evil soul master among humans. Once someone tasted rapid gains in spirit power, it was hard to return to a slower, disciplined path. "All right, let's head to the 10,000-year zone now and find a suitable spirit beast for Tian Yao." Yeshi retracted the slaughter sword into her mind sea and led the way. "I'm actually looking forward to seeing what my 5th spirit ability will be," Tian Yao said as she matched her pace to Yeshi's. Ghost Leopard remained half a step behind them. They reached the region where 10,000-year spirit beasts roamed and began their search. Luck was not on their side. By sunset, they hadn't found a beast suitable for Tian Yao. As dusk fell, they came to a small lake. Tian Yao gazed into its clear water and sighed. "Young miss, why don't we go back and try to find that 10,000-year golden-armored bear?" she suggested. "Although it's a bit young, it would still suit me." Why rush? Yishi answered calmly. We still have time. Keep looking. If we can't find anything else, then we'll consider the golden armored bear. Ghost Leopard, who had been following silently, suddenly stopped and stared at the lake. Surprise showed in his eyes. There's actually a golden dragon turtle here. Aren't those spirit beasts extinct? Tian Yao's eyes lit up. She knew of the golden dragon turtle. It carried Dragon Clan blood. Its bloodline purity was high, and while it excelled at defense, its offensive power was also formidable, an excellent candidate for her spirit ring. Elder Ghost Leopard, how old is it? She asked eagerly. It's about 18,000 years old, Ghost Leopard said after a moment's thought. If you're looking for a fifth spirit ring, that age might be a little high, he added gravely, but its dragon bloodline is exceptionally pure. If you can handle a higher grade spirit ring, it would be an extraordinary match. Chapter 177. Try to absorb the key of leapfrog level. When Yishi finished speaking, Tian Yao's brows drew together and she fell into thought. After a moment, she looked at Yishi and made up her mind. Elder Ghost Leopard, I want to try. Since her second spirit ring, young Miss has been absorbing rings above her rank, Yishi said. I think she can do it now, and the golden dragon turtle isn't that far beyond her limit. Tian Yao's eyes burned with resolve. Ghost Leopard said nothing, but turned to Yishi, asking for her judgment. I think Tian Yao can try. If she really can't absorb it, interrupt the process forcibly. That rare spirit ring will be lost, but it's not the end of the world. Yishi considered for a moment, then spoke softly. Her calculations put Tian Yao's chance of success at about 70%, high enough to be worth the risk. Young Miss, please wait. With that, Ghost Leopard's spirit, black-patterned Ghost Leopard, appeared behind him, its spirit rings flashing under its feet, 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 5 black. It strode toward the small lake and dove in. At the bottom, the massive golden dragon turtle lay motionless. Ghost Leopard's 5th spirit ring flared. He blurred into an afterimage and surged forward. The golden dragon turtle had only just opened its eyes when an unstoppable force slammed into it, sending it flying. Cracks spidered across its hardened shell. Ghost Leopard struck again. The shell shattered, crimson blood spilling from the wound. With the turtle rendered powerless, Ghost Leopard seized its tail, heaved, and flung the carcass out of the water. Waves roiled as the turtle's bulk crashed onto the lakeshore. Yishi and Tian Yao stood by, watching. Tian Yao drew a short sword from her storage spirit tool and drove it into the turtle's head. The creature looked at them with a dying resentment, then went limp. A black spirit ring rose from its body and hovered in the air. Tian Yao sat cross-legged and guided the spirit ring onto herself with her spirit power, beginning the absorption. Ghost Leopard emerged from the lake and stood guard, watching closely. If Tian Yao faltered, he would intervene and break the absorption. Yishi sat nearby, staring up at the brilliant stars, waiting in silence. At first, Tian Yao's sweat broke out on her forehead, and pain contorted her face as the spirit ring relentlessly attacked her soul. Ghost Leopard crept closer, ready to act. Gradually, however, Tian Yao's features smoothed and the sweat dried. The worst of the soul shock passed, and the absorption proceeded steadily. By dawn, Tian Yao opened her eyes, joy lighting them. The golden dragon turtle's spirit ring had been absorbed. Her spirit power now reached Spirit King level 51, only 1 step from level 52. And the spirit ability she gained was Golden Dragon Armor. Golden Dragon Armor, 5th spirit ability. When activated, greatly increases defense, raises attack by 70%, and reflects 50% of incoming damage back to the attacker. Tian Yao was pleased. Though it wasn't as spectacular as Yishi's Evil God's Descent, it was enormously practical, boosting defense while reflecting half the damage. Even if she later rose to a title Douluo, the ability would remain useful. You got a good spirit ability, Yishi said, approaching and holding out her hand. Tian Yao took it. Yes, it's very strong and practical. Then let's go. Yishi helped her to her feet. It's time to head to Slaughter City. Tian Yao nodded, and Ghost Leopard took the carriage reins. They soon left the Star-Do Great Forest. Inside the carriage, Yishi rested a hand on her head. Her silver hair fell naturally, and her deep blue eyes watched Tian Yao quietly. Tian Yao, you must remember what I'm about to say, she said seriously. Anyone who enters Slaughter City is courting death, including us. There are no rules there, only the law of the jungle. Problems are solved by eliminating everyone else. Most importantly, you cannot use your spirit or spirit abilities in Slaughter City. That will limit us severely. I can't promise I'll definitely get you out alive, but I can promise I won't run ahead of you. Young miss, don't worry, Qian Yao said, patting her chest. I won't slow you down. Yeshi smiled and nodded, but a thoughtful look touched her eyes. In Slaughter City, Tian Yao would be unable to use her spirit abilities, but Yeshi's own situation was less certain. Her domain, the Slaughter domain, might allow her to bypass the city's restriction and use spirit power and abilities there. Whether that would work would only be known once they tried. The carriage sped on, but thanks to excellent suspension and soft cushions, the motion inside was smooth. With several days' travel still ahead of them, Yeshi and Tian Yao both chose to meditate and cultivate, keeping themselves at peak condition for whatever awaited in Slaughter City. Several days later, in what looked like an ordinary small town, a carriage stopped in front of the local tavern. The door opened, and Yeshi and Tian Yao stepped out, their eyes fixed on the building ahead. Ghost Leopard, you can return to Frost Snow Pavilion first, Yeshi said. Ghost Leopard agreed at once, but he did not drive away. Instead, he watched silently as the two women disappeared into the tavern. The air inside the tavern was thick and unpleasant. Everything was done in black. Even though it was daytime outside, the place felt cold and shadowed. Only a dozen or so patrons lingered inside, and most kept to themselves. Yeshi led Tian Yao to a corner, and their arrival drew a few hostile stares and several curious ones. A black-clad waiter with an indifferent face approached. "What will you have?" he asked in a flat voice, his eyes flicking between them. "2 Bloody Marys," Yeshi answered calmly. The waiter blinked in surprise, then chuckled lightly. "If I were you, I'd leave now. Maybe you'll get out in one piece." He nodded toward the other patrons, the meaning clear. Yeshi had already noticed the surrounding gazes. She did not care. The waiter turned and went to the counter, returning soon with 2 Bloody Marys, which he set before them. Neither Yeshi nor Tian Yao moved to touch the drinks. "Where is the entrance to Slaughter City?" Yeshi asked the waiter. He only laughed softly and offered no answer. After he ignored them for a moment, Yeshi rose. The slaughter sword appeared in her hand with no sound. A cold glint flashed in the waiter's eyes before his body went limp and collapsed to the floor. "If you won't tell me, I'll find it myself," she said. She went to the counter, snapped her fingers, and said, "Tian Yao, clear them out." Tian Yao rose and faced the tavern. Several of the patrons stood as well, contempt and amusement in their faces. "2 wet-behind-the-ears girls think they can clear us out," one of them scoffed, and the others surged forward. Tian Yao moved like the wind, controlled, decisive. She never wasted an extra strike when one would do. The fight quieted quickly. Meanwhile, Yeshi tapped the floor near the counter a few times and discovered it was hollow. Where the counter met the floor, there was an entrance hidden below. Yeshi clenched her hand into a fist and struck. The board shattered with a bang, revealing a pitch-black shaft. The scuffle in the tavern died away, and Tian Yao walked over and stood beside her. "Young miss, it's handled," she said. They peered into the void. No light came back. "Let's go down," Yeshi said, and without hesitation she dropped into the darkness. Tian Yao followed close behind. After only a few meters, they hit solid ground, a long, winding passage sloping down, and a chill rose up from below. They walked for a long while, about 1,000 steps, before a cold voice echoed from all around them. "Welcome to Slaughter City. This is the capital of hell, a world of slaughter. Here you can obtain anything you desire, at the price of your life." Yeshi kept walking as if the voice meant nothing. A pale light then appeared ahead, and the passage opened onto a wide gate. Waiting before them was a formation of more than 100 knights in black armor, each armed with heavy weapons. Their leader sat high on a tall warhorse. "You have violated the rules," the leader said in a low voice. "When did Slaughter City have rules?" Yeshi retorted casually, the slaughter sword already in her hand. "Those who violate the rules must accept punishment," the leader said. "Defeat me, and you may enter. Fail, and you will perish here." He raised a long spear. The warhorse reared and charged straight at Yeshi. "Young miss, shall I?" Tian Yao started. "I can handle this." Yeshi stopped her, eyes steady on the charging knight. A roar tore from the leader's throat. "I am Terror Knight Scott," he bellowed, and drove his spear forward. The spear met the slaughter sword with a metallic clang. Yeshi's blade sliced clean through the spear and then swept into Scott himself. The sword cut through his black armor and left a long, bloody gash across his chest. The warhorse let out a mournful cry as Scott slid off and hit the ground hard. For a long moment, Scott lay stunned. Then he hauled himself up, staring at the wound on his chest with an expression of shocked disbelief. Chapter 179. Enter the Killing City. "Are we qualified to enter now?" Yeshi asked softly, keeping the slaughter sword pressed at Scott's throat. "Yes." Scott's answer was curt. He produced 2 tokens and handed them to Yeshi and Tian Yao. At his movement, the black-armored knights snapped into formation, parting to clear a path. Yeshi glanced at the disciplined ranks with approval. "The Supreme Pontiff Palace has its temple knights," she murmured. "Maybe Frost Snow Pavilion should have its own knight order." Forming a knight order in Heavenly Dew City, though, she let the thought trail off and stepped forward, leading Tian Yao into Slaughter City. A woman in black appeared almost at once. "Welcome to Slaughter City," she said pleasantly, offering a polite gesture. "I'm your guide. Ask me anything you don't understand. For the next 12 hours, I'll answer every question. After that, this will be your home. You'll officially become a member of Slaughter City." "We don't need any explanations," Yeshi said. "Just take us to the inner city." The guide smiled, but warned as she walked ahead by a half step, keeping them in her sight. "Before we go in, remember, the inner city is a true paradise. There are no rules here. If you plan to go inside, wear a mask. It will save you a lot of trouble. I can only protect you for 12 hours. After that, you're on your own." They passed from the sparse, black-stoned outer city into the inner city, where small walled courtyards lined wide, cleaner streets. The closer they drew to the Hell Slaughter Arena, the more opulent the homes became. Yeshi scanned the rows, already picking out a courtyard she liked. "If you fancy a courtyard," the guide said when Tian Yao asked quietly how people lived here, "you can just seize it. But anything you do before the 12 hours are up, you'll lose my protection." They continued toward the Hell Slaughter Arena, its shape unfamiliar, broad at the base, tapering up into a truncated cone, then widening into a cylindrical tower about 30 meters up. It sprawled across a vast area, a black, oppressive monument almost rivaling the Great Spirit Arena in scope. "To watch a match in the Hell Slaughter Arena, you need a cup of Bloody Mary," the guide explained as they walked. "It can be your own or someone else's." Yeshi said nothing. The slaughter sword appeared in her hand without fanfare. "I'll remind you again," the guide said. "If you take action, you lose my protection." "I know. You can leave now." Yeshi waved the woman away and then, without hesitation, slashed at a passerby. Crimson flowed. With 2 cups of Bloody Mary in hand, Yeshi led Tian Yao up to the spectator stands. The guide watched them go, stunned for a moment. She had guided countless newcomers, but never one who discarded novice protection before the 12 hours were up. She composed herself and left. From the stands, Yeshi watched the fight below with perfect calm. "Tian Yao, get ready," she said. "When the battle ends, we'll leave the arena and seize a courtyard." "Understood, young miss," Tian Yao answered with steady formality. Yet even she perceived a current of excitement under Yeshi's voice, an excitement that wasn't entirely Yeshi's own. It came from Slaughter Angel, Yeshi's spirit. In Slaughter City, the ambient killing intent rose in the air like a draught. It stirred Slaughter Angel, and that spirit's hunger bled into Yeshi, sharpening her senses and quickening her pulse. The match below ended quickly. Yeshi rose from the stands, shouldering the slaughter sword. The blade scraped the ground as she walked, sending up sparks and leaving a long, dark groove in the pavement. Tian Yao pulled a short sword from her storage ring and moved beside her. They aimed for the most luxurious courtyard nearest the arena. A burly, middle-aged man with a huge iron hammer blocked their path, leering as he sized Yeshi up. "Little sister, how about I take you out to play?" he crooned. Yeshi smiled and lifted the slaughter sword. The man swung his hammer up to block, but the blade sliced through iron as if it were paper. Blood sprayed, darkening Yeshi's clothing. The man's body crumpled to the ground. Chapter 180, Reduced to a Blow. After dealing with the middle-aged man, Yeshi swept her gaze around. No one else stepped forward, so she resumed toward the courtyard she'd picked out. Tian Yao quietly followed her. It wasn't that she didn't want to help. Yeshi simply moved too fast for her to get the chance. At the courtyard gate, Yeshi found the door tightly shut. She raised a foot and kicked. The gate slammed back with a crash and toppled to the ground. "Who dares trespass in my courtyard?" A rough voice called from inside. A long halberd flew out of a second-floor window, slammed into the earth, and a figure landed on its shaft, looking down at Yeshi and Tian Yao. Anyone who could claim the best courtyard in Slaughter City's inner city had to be strong, otherwise they'd long since be dead. Yeshi studied the figure while Tian Yao's eyes went to the halberd. It was a fine weapon, and Tian Yao, lacking anything suitable, couldn't help admiring it. The sea god's first 3 styles she practiced needed a proper polearm. Yeshi noticed Tian Yao's look, gave the halberd a brief glance, then spoke. "I want this courtyard." She tapped the ground and leapt, charging the figure while slashing with her slaughter sword. The man on the halberd reacted quickly. He pulled the weapon free and thrust it at her. Yeshi sidestepped the thrust, grabbed the shaft, flipped in midair, and kicked him. The halberd slipped from his grasp. Yeshi seized it, hurled it toward Tian Yao, and drove her slaughter sword into the man. She stepped on him, withdrew the blade, and with a flick, the blood on the tip vanished. "Dispose of the body. I'll check the room," she said, then stepped inside. Tian Yao dealt with the corpse and wiped away the blood. Yeshi inspected the room, a clean, sensible layout that only needed a light tidy before it could be lived in. While Tian Yao cleaned outside, Yeshi released her spirit and, following it, the slaughter domain. To her surprise and delight, she found she could use her spirit abilities while in the slaughter domain. That meant anywhere in Slaughter City where there were no enforcers, she effectively became a one-strike annihilation to anyone else. After retracting her spirit and the domain, Yeshi finished cleaning out the room. The previous owner's belongings were discarded. Tian Yao came in and helped, and soon they settled into the courtyard. Days passed. Their life in Slaughter City settled into a routine. Each day they either entered the Hell Slaughter Arena for a match or hunted down whoever came to harass them. Their streaks of victories in the arena earned them reputations. Yeshi became known as Death God, Tian Yao, Hell Messenger. The nicknames brought attention and problems. Arena matches paired 10 people, and whenever Yeshi and Tian Yao appeared, the other 9 would quietly gang up, trying to neutralize one of them early. Yeshi, wielding a divine artifact, handled such odds without fear. She had enough leeway to take care of herself. Tian Yao fared worse. The halberd she'd grabbed had been damaged in earlier fights, and without a proper long weapon she had to make do with a short sword. Surrounded and picked on, she often ended up injured and needed full recovery before she could return to the arena. That widened the gap between their consecutive win counts. A year later, Yeshi sat in the spectator stands of the Hell Slaughter Arena, her azure eyes quietly watching the match below. A spontaneous vacuum zone had formed around her seat. The nearest people kept at least 15 meters away and minimized their presence so as not to attract her. Yeshi's consecutive wins had reached 99, just one away from 100, but she hadn't been able to fight the final match because Tian Yao's current streak was only 82. Yeshi's spirit cultivation had grown slowly in Slaughter City. She remained a level 54 Spirit King. Still, endless slaughter had honed her swordsmanship into the realm of intent, and after absorbing the evil god orb, her spirit had gained wind, lightning, and space attributes. "The situation isn't good," she muttered, watching. Below, Tian Yao's hand kept dripping blood as she gripped her short sword. A cold sweat dotted her forehead. 3 opponents faced her, one with a long spear, one with a long sword, and one with a bow. Their eyes were fixed on Tian Yao, hers on the archer. Against the spear and sword, Tian Yao felt she could hold her own 1-on-2, but the archer kept firing chilling arrows from behind. Every time she tried to take out the archer, the other 2 would intercept. The fight had reached a tense stalemate, both sides waiting for an opening, neither daring to move.